CII Radio, embracing Africa one city at a time.
All thanks is to Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight on Cii Sadida, separation. Marriage is an act of Islam and holds great virtues. Trust, respect, etc. are the arteries that stabilizes a marriage. However, communication is the key to a blissful marriage. Once a communication has lost its values in a marriage, a separation by means of a mutual decision can come into effect. Unfortunately, separation is misunderstood, and to many it is regarded as a stepping stone to a divorce. Join Mufti Fayaz Aswat, Sister Shahista Ibrahim, and Sister Bibi Aisha Lahe as they dissect this important subject. Cii Sadida, between 8 and 10 p.m. only on Channel Islam International.
Allah, 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 La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah, Hasbi Rabbi Jallallah, Ma fi qalbi ghayrullah.
Cii Sadida with Yusuf Lambat.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and Juma Mubarak.
Muhammad jab chamka, salli ala ka shor hua, sabne milke yehi kaha.
Welcome to the program. Today being the 23rd of Rabiul Akhir 1444, corresponding with the 17th of November 2022. A warm welcome to our honored and respectable listeners from Radio Cii 1575 AM medium wave in Leicester, the UK. Engineer for this evening, Brother Muhammad Nadim. Gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His mercy on each one of us to witness another blessed night of Jummah. As a united ummah, let us increase our salutations to our beloved Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Durood should be recited on a daily basis and increased on the blessed night and day of Jummah. Words from our beloved Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The best day the sun rises over is on the day of Jummah. The last hour will take place on no other day than Friday.
Cii Sadida with Yusuf Lambat.
To those that are not well, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you complete shifa with afiyah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant all the marhumin forgiveness and Jannatul Firdaus, and to the next of kin the strength of acceptance. This evening we're discussing a separation, an important factor that we need to look at, for it plays such an important role in stabilizing a marriage. Let us welcome members of the panel. A warm welcome and an honored welcome to Mufti Fayyaz Aswad Sahib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hi, Brother Yusuf, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to our panel, to the listeners of Channel Islam International, as well as the engineer for this evening.
Musab, once again, Jazakallah for your time.
Barakallahu feekum, inshallah. It's an honor to be on your show once again.
Jazakallah for that, Mufti Sahib. Also with us, the life coach. A warm welcome to Sister Shahista Ibrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you this lovely evening, Uncle Yusuf?
Alhamdulillah, Sister Shahista. How are you doing? How's the family doing?
Alhamdulillah. Family is excellent. Everybody's well.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Also honored to have on the platform of Colin Sadida, internationally accredited and transformative life coach, NLP practitioner, a radio personality, a public figure, motivational speaker, play therapist, a voice-over artist, NMMC. I was honored to be on her program on a few occasions. Honored to welcome Sister Bibi Aisha Lahir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Brother Yusuf Lambat, to the panelists, and to the listeners of CII. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our efforts, inshallah.
Ameen, ameen. How are you doing? How's Port Elizabeth this evening?
Port Elizabeth, alhamdulillah, is beautiful. It's like Cape Town lifestyle. It's a fraction of the cost, alhamdulillah. But unfortunately, with the moody weather that I think we're having around South Africa, I think I'm picking up a bit of the flu. So please bear with me. There's one or two coughs along the way. It just happened a couple of minutes ago. But alhamdulillah.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you quickly shifa there, inshallah.
Ameen.
Yeah, respected listeners, a very important subject, separation. Do we really understand it? What is it in a marriage? We should understand, or it should be clear, that marriage in Islam is a solemn contract for which the Sharia lays down rules and arrangements to guarantee its stability. The spouses should avoid fighting or divorce as much as possible. If they have difficulties and problems, they should be patient and forbearing. They have to try to work out their differences and seek help from whom they know that can but re-stabilize them. It is not right for husband and wife to break their relationship for such a long time. If there are differences, then they should try to reconcile as soon as possible. Our beloved Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam urged each one of us to reconcile our differences, if possible, within 3 days. The one who begins the reconciliation receives the greater reward and blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, a severance due to strained relationship does not affect the nikah. However long it lasts, they are still husband and wife. Let us cross over to Mufti Fayyaz Aswad Sahib. Mufti Sahib, your introduction.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Firstly, we ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us and grant us wisdom this evening, in which we discuss the aspect of separation. And obviously, Brother Yusuf, it's not something that we are encouraging. It is something just to highlight the importance of, and obviously the severity that may result from a separation. But obviously, having said separation is a time when a husband and a wife take a break in their marriage. And this is not necessarily divorce, but rather the two of them, maybe they go into some type of problems, and they decide to do a trial separation to stay apart from one another just so that they can resolve their issues. If this is the reasoning and the rationale behind their separation, just to resolve their issues, then it could be something which obviously may be beneficial for their marriage, because then the husband and wife will realize that being separated from each other, they may realize how how beautiful and perfect their life may have been, even though there may have been some arguments, even though there may have been some miscommunications, etc. They may realize how their life without one another is not a good life. So separation and divorce are two distinctly different things. Separation is when the spouse of either of them choose to live separately while remaining married, and divorce obviously is the end of a marriage. Now, with regards to separation, separation by mutual decision is permissible. Separation by one party only in Islam is not permissible, and this needs to neglect of marital responsibilities, and except under extraordinary circumstances, then if a person separates, it may be good for them, but on general basis, it is better that they stay together. In separation, the marriage is intact, and therefore the couple remain husband and wife. All things that are permissible between the husband and wife, including intimacy, are permissible for a separated couple. Now, with regards to the separated couple, what is the reason and the rationale behind taking this trial separation? Is it to end up or to end this marriage, and whereby one issues the divorce and the other receives the divorce, or is this trial separation a means to reconcile and to reaffirm, or to rather to renew their love for one another, and to realize that they cannot do without one another, because they may have been married for maybe 2, 3, even 4 years, and they have become so close, but it just sometimes a little argument may break through, and they try a trial separation just so that they can reconcile and settle their difference. If this is the reason behind it, alhamdulillah, just to renew their love for one another, just to take time apart from one another, just so that they can realize how much they really need one another in their lives. And this will be, obviously, it is permissible in Sharia, and it may be just a moment in their lives where they realize that they cannot do without one another. But if this separation is taken or is in due course, which may result up in a divorce, then also it could have some perks in it, and it could have, or rather should I say, pros and some cons. If the separation is there so that they can lead up to the divorce, heading to the divorce, then to also they have some time apart just to think about it and to make sure that they are making the right decision. And also at that time, they need to turn to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ask Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance as far as this separation is concerned. And who knows, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will then reconcile their hearts, and they may realize that separation or that trial separation was something which made them grow more fond for one another. So separation is not divorce in Islam, but rather it is a trial period where the husband and wife just live apart just to resolve some conflict within their marriage.
Most definitely beautifully put across there, Mufti Sab. Yeah, listeners, it is very important to understand. There was our beloved Nabi Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the most dislike of all permissible deeds to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a divorce. Thus, separation and divorce are two distinctly different things. Separation by mutual decision is permissible. Separation by one party is not permissible, as this leads to neglect of marital responsibilities, except under extraordinary circumstances like domestic violence, etc. So it's very important. Yes, we do not promote separation, but we got to understand when separation can come into effect and How do we curtail it? Because I firmly believe separation should be regarded as the pathway for a reconciliation. Let's go across to Sister Shaista Ibrahim. Sister Shaista, let's give it a go.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Very pertinent topic, Uncle Yusuf, and especially an important one when we're talking about nikah, when we're talking about marriage, we have to talk about separation. So, separation, alhamdulillah, we come back to the fact that what a beautiful deen we have. A deen where it is been told that if you're not getting along, have a person come in, a mutual person, and known to both parties, and preferably not family, and let them try and sort the problems out. If that is not working, then go into spending time apart, go into separate rooms for that matter, and that time is that gives you that separation time. So separation doesn't only have to mean leaving the family home. Separation can be, I'm just giving myself time out. I'm just going to stay in another room for a while. I just don't want to have as much contact with you. I need to gather my thoughts. So, if you look at marriage, you're putting two human beings together. And again, there are bound to be some hiccups on the way, some little bumps on the way. This is absolutely normal. When we tend to give ourselves time in separation, it's almost saying like a match, when they're playing a match, and if somebody gets hurt, and the referee will say time out, okay, and then you go to your corner and we go and see what's happening on here, and you help that person, you gather their thoughts, you find out if they're going to be okay to go back into the game or not. So we should look at that as just time out together, to just decide where we're going with this, what is really happening, how much effort do I want to put in it, am I still willing to give everything to the marriage? And we have that lovely saying that says, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Sometimes there's so much of khair and goodness in a separation. Sometimes that time out is important. When you're counseling, and because I do like a behavior analysis, some couples actually need, it's a necessity for them to have time out. So, if the husband says, I'm going fishing with the guys, or I'm going, in Jamaat, or the wife says, okay, I'm going to my mom for the weekend. Sometimes that time out is actually healthy for a relationship, because when they come back, then it's not just too much of one person all the time. And when we see that couples sometimes go through little difficulties, separation is what actually makes them realize just how much they're missing the person. They start to realize, this is what I'm missing out on. We used to talk, I'm feeling lonely now. It's so quiet, I can't do this on my own. I see this person, my heart actually goes out to that person, to my spouse, because I do realize I still have feelings there. You realize, why you're together in the first place. And a lot of marriages, after a while, they forget that. They just go with the flow, and you forget the reasons of why you're together. The love gets forgotten. You forget that we're here for a purpose. We're both on our own journeys, but together we want to get closer to Allah. We've got to help each other, because that's what marriage is. And when you have a little time apart, it's just, again, time out together and to figure out what you actually want. And then you kind of just then can go into the marriage again, inshallah. And like you said, the whole idea of marital separation should be about getting together again and reconciliation. But when you get together, then you come in with a renewed energy. If you normal people, when you going for something and you're really at it all the time, sometimes you don't really look at how far you've come. But when you get tired, you get exhausted. But if you just sit on the side of the road under a tree and relax for a little bit, gather yourself, get some energy, get your mind in the right direction, and when you start taking off again, you've got a new gusto to yourself. And that's, I think, how people should look at separation, not with the intention, inshallah, and we hope, of divorce, but of giving it another shot. This is what we need. So it's, again, time out. Let's decide what we want. Let's miss each other enough to know when we come back, we're going to do things differently. And that's, I think, how we should be looking at separation. So like Mufti Saab said, you're still in a marriage, you're still husband and wife, you can reconcile at any time. It can be a holding of hands, or just something really simple, and then you realize, okay, this is really what I've been missing and I want. And so shukr that you have this kind of thing, that we've been told that this is available to couples, just to make sure that they don't go and, the final way, divorce way, without actually giving it another shot.
Beautifully put across, Sister Shaista. Beautifully put across. Sister Bibi Aisha here, and listening to Sister Shaista, married life, married has got a lot of bumps on the way. I think today what we term it is a journey or a road filled with a lot of potholes. Sister Bibi Aisha, your introduction to the program?
Okay, first and foremost, my introduction is, whatever Malana has said, whatever Sister Shaista said, and you said, that is like 500% correct. The arsh of Allah shakes when there's a divorce, and sometimes if there's no way of reconciliation and after separation you still can't come to some mutual agreement of how to move forward, then that may be the route to take. But prior to that, separation is actually healthy for marriage. People forget that a separation is not a divorce, and I don't think that we can overemphasize it enough. But there are common mistakes that people do when they are separated, and the first one being going home and bad-mouthing the other spouse. Very rarely will people actually acknowledge, or a couple will say, I have also my flaws. I have also not brought everything to the table that I should. It's normally, he did this, he did that, she did this, she did this. How about I did not do this, or I could not fulfill this? How many of us actually reflect on our shortcomings? So that's a big mistake that sometimes people do tend to make when they are separated. The blame game. Stop the blame game. You can't say he didn't, she didn't. Let's say, how did we not do X, Y, and Z? I think that's very, very important. I think also with separation, what my statements would come across from obviously engaging with people who have been through this, that keep your separation private. When you do come back home for whatever reason, or maybe you are actually in the same house, but maybe you're not sleeping in the same room, that is also a separation. People tend to forget what a separation actually means. When any time that you are not sharing the same bedroom, or you're in another room, like we said, or maybe at a family member's house, or you came back to your parents' home for a little bit, you are not divorced. And yes, the tongues are going to be wagging. You can't control what people say, but you can control what you say. People are going to make assumptions. People are going to jump to conclusions. Do not feed into the stories. Keep your marriage private. It's normal and natural that if a person says X, Y, and Z about somebody else to their parents, to their family members, this is your family. You are going to be subjective as much as you try not to. That family or that support base is already going to have a negative view on your spouse. And it's going to work both ways. If any discussions need to be taken place, which needs to be taken place, is actually very, very important. It should be done by a mature, responsible, reputable, qualified alim, marriage therapist, or psychologist. You can't go to someone who's 25 years old and ask for marriage guidance. That person is still starting his or her life. So you need to be realistic. Go together with an open mind, with a plan that I'm not going to go and complain and find a whole list of 500 faults, but I'm going to go there and talk about the positive points of my spouse. And at one point in time, your spouse is obviously perfect if you chose to have married him or her. So look back at what brought you together. Look back at your strengths and weaknesses. Look back and think to yourself, why did we start this journey in the first place? Find the common ground. Find the commonality. If there's differences, and there will be differences, I mean, nobody's perfect. You will have likes and dislikes, but express it in a respectable, healthy manner. I may not approve of the way you handle X, Y, and Z, but can we maybe find a way where it is a win-win situation for both of us? So the whole idea of separation is to find a solution that is a win-win for both parties involved. It's to find a way of bringing the families together as well in a manner where no family looks down on the other person in the marriage, because ultimately the marriage is between just the two people, the couple. Obviously, if there are children involved, when there's a separation, it becomes much more challenging, because explaining to children what is going on can be very confusing. Don't underestimate children and think they don't understand or they're too young to understand. They're much more wiser than we assume. So if they're going to hear people talking to either party, either parent about the other parent, it's going to hurt them. If you are going to say something negative about either parent, it's going to hurt them. So very importantly, keep it private. Watch which family members you speak to. You will notice that when there's a separation, all of a sudden there are people in your circle, maybe it could be distant family relatives, maybe it could be even friends that you have never ever kept in touch with for years or even months, and all of a sudden everyone wants to call you now. You also need to understand, is this somebody who genuinely cares about what's going on? Is this something that's going to be sparking a whole lot of stories that are untrue? You have to be private. You have to be very, very clever in what you are doing, because ultimately you do not want the arsh of Allah to shake. You must remember also that if you are going to go around bad-mouthing your spouse, whether it be to your family members, whether it be to friends, whether it be to your children, there is a time where you are going to have to eat humble pie. You could come to a reconciliation, which is what everyone makes dua for, because you don't want a marriage to break. And when you get back together with this person, how will you face this person when so many people came to tell person X that you said this, or vice versa? It's very, very uncomfortable. It's very childish, and it's really, really unnecessary. You may be upset about certain things. Speak again, like we said, to a therapist, someone who's completely objective, somebody who will tell you openly that I don't believe this is the right way to be moving forward. So I think a very, very important reminder is that when you go through a separation, number one, it is not a divorce. Number two, also keep it private. Number three, I think something that's also very important, that when you are separated, you are still in nikah. The responsibilities of maintenance, maintaining your wife must still be there. There's no way that financial support must be stopped. Not at all. You are still in nikah. And every attempt should be made to reconcile. Have those conversations, have those phone calls, have those moments where you sit and talk about what the issue is. Don't dwell on the problems. Focus on the positives. Find a solution and find that way, that path that you can take, that first and foremost will please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you make that niyat that I'm going to fix this, firstly to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, to follow the sunnah of our Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sit on the musalla, make dua during tahajjud time, make dua during any salah, make dua, read salatul hajat, and I promise you Allah will make the path easy. The solution will be so easy. Put your trust in Allah and tell yourself that we want to do what will please Allah first, and I promise you the path after that will be so much easier.
Definitely beautiful points. Hit the nail on the head on many, many factors there. Sister Bibi Aisha Lahe. Mufti Sahab, let us face reality. We're talking of a separation. We're not promoting separation. We need every marriage to be intact and, continue in that harmonious way. That's how marriage should be filled with love, joy, and respect. But we look at a separation. I say that a separation is caused because there is no more communication. The communication has reached such a level that yes, giving each other space is the solution. Now, here's a couple with that problem now. And I see it, and I'm sure Sister Bibi Aisha sees it, Mufti Sahab, you may have seen it, Sister Shahista also sees it, that between the couple, it is always the sister that comes forward crying for assistance because that hubby is in denial. Now, when we say a separation should come into effect with mutual consent and understanding, who do they go to? And here, Mufti Sahab, I need to come in here. The last few weeks we've been doing the proposals and the format of the nikahs and so on. And here I want to make our listeners aware that when we choose witnesses at a nikah, it is not just anybody who's going to put an autograph on that register. We need to understand, get the correct witnesses, because it is so important that in times like these, that witnesses, and here we promote the father of the daughter, giving his daughter away in marriage, on the boy's side, his father, the importance of communication from the in-law sides with each other. And I think all these factors are so important because they are now filling in the gap that is left because of the weak communication between the spouses. Mufti Sahab.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Yes, definitely. With regards to marriage, one of the critical aspects into maintaining harmonious relation between the husband and wife is communication. Communication is the key to a happy marriage. And it is absolutely essential that a man be able to talk to his spouse. He be able to tell her things. He be able to confide in her. And he be able to tell her whatever his desires are, whatever his wants are, whatever his needs are. He has to tell her about himself. He has to tell her what his fears are. She should become his confidant in marriage. And he should be able to tell her anything. And the same goes for the spouse. When she's going through any type of difficulty, if she needs someone to speak to, then she also should speak to the husband. But unfortunately, in today's times, we find that a marriage is such that the husband and wife, once they get married, then they think that marriage is only to fulfill their desires. And there's no communication whatsoever between the two. They don't talk to each other. They don't sit for a meal together. They don't know how to communicate with one another. They cannot share light-hearted moments with one another. And because of the lack of communication, they end up becoming miserable, bored, and find no happiness whatsoever within their marriage. And if you look at the beautiful life of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam was someone who would communicate to his wife. And I'm sure we all know the beautiful incident when Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam received wahi and he saw Jibreel alayhi salam for the first time. This was obviously a miraculous experience for Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was something that made Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam uneasy, in the sense that wahi was very difficult for Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam to receive. And as we know from the narrations, that Jibreel alayhi salam hugged Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, began to squeeze him, and that Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam felt slightly uncomfortable and commanded him to read and commanded him to do something which he was unable to do so. And the incident is very lengthy, we all know it. But then Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned home. And when he returned home, the first person he approached was his wife Sayyidatina Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha. And we know the nasheed, we know the words that Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam even used. And these words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also uses it in the Quran Kareem, that zammiluni tathiruni, that cover me, wrap me with a cloth. Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam was shivering at that time. And Sayyidina Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, look at the communication between the husband and wife. The two of them are role models for you and I. At that time, she came to Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeing him at a difficult point and period in his life, experiencing something which took him out of his comfort zone. And she came to him and she reassured him. And she said that, "Oh Muhammad, O Nabi of Allah." At that time, he just received the Nabuwa. So she's addressed him in the manner in which she always addressed Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in that loving way. And she came to Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam and she said, "You are a good person. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would not dishonor you in any way. He would not harm you in any way." She reassured Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam immediately calmed down and he felt at ease. He was reassured by his wife, communication being the key. That she was able to speak to Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was able to tell her her fears. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with marriages like this, where we can communicate and we can speak to our wife, that we can be ourselves with her. She can be, the wife can be herself with her husband, and they do not fear each other, but rather they have hope and they love one another. That this is the person who will comfort me. You know, the Quran explains it so beautifully, that the husband and wife, as far as their communication, as far as their actions, as far as their role and responsibility to one another, is like a garment to one another. Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. That she is a garment unto you, and you are a garment unto her. You have to protect her during the cold. You have to protect her from the sun during the heat. So you should become a means of solace to one another by communicating with one another. And insha'Allah, it will remove all fears. It will remove all difficulties. So communication can save that couple from separation and insha'Allah from divorce, just so that they can tell each other and speak to one another, not shout, not scream, not be totally irrational, but rather communicate to each other with love, with respect, and in a manner in which you know that you would not offend your partner.
Jazakallah Mufti Sab, Jazakallah for that. Sister Shahista, here comes a separation, and most definitely that couple are not hitting it off. The communication is at its worst. That is why separation is going to come into effect. They need somebody in the middle that will assist them, because if not, there's going to be chaos, and you'll find children's arms are going to be pulled between either father or mother. Their lives are going to be torn apart because of this separation. And we, in today's time, we're doing it so unfairly that, you know, where the separation should allow us to try to negotiate with each other in a better tone, it becomes more uglier day by day. And I feel now the time we're discussing this topic, that we got to understand that when we want to do this separation, they need somebody in the middle out there. Now, living in denial, in many times you find the sisters are knocking our doors and seeking assistance behind their husband because the emotional level is such they need something, they need assistance in the marriage. It's about time our brothers out there realize the pain that the sisters also go through, that our sisters go through. They are our spouses. We need to take care of them. And if you cannot listen to their problems, at least come forward. Let us sit down. Let us find solutions so that the separation can be done in the most healthiest format, with the focus being on reconciliation. So, Sister Shaista, just a bit on that. It is so important for the person who's in the middle to really do it with a lot of justice, Sister Shaista.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. That's so imperative. The right person that you get, Uncle Yusuf, is the person that's going to help you to see the best of each other within the separation time. So when you have somebody that comes in, like Sister Bibi Aisha said, you know, that has wisdom, they're a little bit older, there's somebody that is, you know, responsible. We have to have all of these qualities. You have to have compassion. And for me, I have to say, you have to understand things from the woman's point of view. I feel that we have way too many, men out there, the counselors out there, even some ulama, unfortunately, and I've had that, and I say this with respect to all of them, and this is from couples that have come to me for counseling, that over time what happens is men, the ulama will say, bayan make sabr. That bayan make sabr, is not for me the right way. We've got to be fair. You've got two people involved in this. And if you have a spouse that is really difficult, if there's domestic violence, if there's, a lot of mental abuse, emotional abuse, you can't expect that woman to be making sabr. That is not the way. At no point, yes, as much as divorce is is terrible, it is still allowed. At any point, we need to teach this couple that they need to start changing. The behavior needs to change. So the person that you get to actually mediate, the person that's in the middle, has to be somebody who's fair and who's just and who has these qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in no way do we say that one person is completely wrong. If the male has all of these issues, in no way are we saying that the female is without any fault. Of course, everybody has faults, and I'm sure there are things that she's doing that is contributing to that as well. But the person in the middle needs to make sure that they're seeing both sides of the story equally fair. Okay, so that's the important thing, and you need somebody who's going to understand that on both levels. So alhamdulillah, then when they can do that, then the mediator literally has to worry about these steps, right? So one is when a couple separates, you have to teach them that mediator has to tell both of them that you can't push for wanting to get together. The idea of a separation by itself is to give each other time to assess the marriage, to see the future, to see your value in it, and to understand if you really want it or not. To give you time to see if you missed things you know about, or to if you're coping on your own. It's just a lot of things to take into effect when you separated. So the person that comes in the middle has to actually say, because when people separate, one spouse will say, I need time out. Like, I can't do this any longer. I've had it. We've done discussions. You're not changing. And the other one will probably say, but I promise you I will. Please don't go. So you're going to have one that wants the separation and one that's going to want it less. Okay, so when you're a mediator, you've got to actually tell the one that wants it less, and you've got to say to them, give them space. Give your spouse space. The bottom line is you can't force somebody to be with you. And because the separation is about hopefully reconciliation, a person that is going to be forced to come is not coming on their own accord. They're not coming on their own account. And they may come because you're pushing, too hard, but they're not coming for the right reasons. And if you're going to be doing things together after a separation, you want things to be done properly. So the one is you've got to teach them, don't push. Allow this to happen and give it the space that it needs. At times, it may feel difficult, but it is the right move. And when somebody, what is that beautiful saying we have, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. If it doesn't, it never was, right? And, we say that when we've over the years, but it's really true. So allowing somebody to go and wanting to come back on their own makes all the difference. So that's the one thing the mediator needs to do. We also need to have somebody that says, listen, guys, where's the problem? It's not about he said, she said, I did, he did, they did, in-laws did, my mother, my father, his mother, his father. It doesn't, we've got to literally sit down and say, where's the problem in this marriage? And dissect it if need be, and go bit by bit and find the solutions for it. So if we have a mediator that says, okay, fine, no problem, go your own way, separating is not the thing. It's the separation about what you need to learn, what the other spouse needs to learn, what you need to look at within yourself, what the other spouse needs to look in their self, and then how you can help yourself. So when you come back, you're a better person. In that time of separation, maybe, it's a good idea for both parties to work on themselves, maybe get help. People come into marriages with baggage. We all have baggage. Even if we say our parents had the most wonderful relationship, we have baggage because sometimes you can be born with stuff from your mother. So everybody, whoever works on yourself, you come in with a more clearer view, with a concise view, with a view of what your role is, what is important for you to do, what and how you should behave, where you were going wrong. So, when you're separating and that mediator comes, you've got to allow them to take everything apart and be open to what they're telling you, because they're doing it for your good. It's no sense people separate and come back and you've got the same problems. Like, what is the point of that, right? So it's got to be looking for the problem, and most important, finding solutions. And the couple then has to listen, because if you're bringing an expert in, if you're bringing somebody who's going to assist them with means of reconciliation, then you have to be open to listening about where you also went wrong, and as a spouse, what do I need to do? How do I contribute to making things better in future? So finding solutions is absolutely key, right? If we don't find solutions, again, separation means nothing. So you've got to say, this is the way forward. This is what we used to do in the past. We're going to do this. And when the mediator comes and finds solution, now you've got to actually work at it. So if you were told that you're just too sloppy, example, you're just too lazy, you're not doing anything around the house enough, you've got to actually say, fine, if that was part of the problem, and that is what I was bringing to the problem, then I'm going to work on it. So you've got to start working on things to show the other spouse and yourself that you have what it takes, right? So you've got to not only find the solutions, but work at it. We also need to understand that couples need to give themselves a little bit of a deadline, right? I feel that's extremely important, Uncle Yusuf, because what happens is, we know couples sometimes, I counsel people that don't talk for 8 months. Now, if you're not talking to your spouse for 8 months, this separation can go on for 15 years if we leave it at that. Like you've got to say, listen, yeah, I'm giving you 6 weeks, or I'm giving you, 6 weeks. I think is fair. A month is fair. Everybody's different. How long? And maybe ask them, how long do you think you need time apart that for you to figure things out? So set a deadline, because if you don't have that, people become very relaxed. Like a woman would say, it's so convenient. I can go where I want. I can do what I want. My husband doesn't care now. He's on his own vibe. He doesn't bother. It's so relaxing. I don't have to stress about him. He doesn't want to eat with us. So he's even warming his own food. Men and women, sometimes they do that. No, I'll make my own tea. Or no, you don't cook for me. I'm not eating your food. So when you're separated, you can actually get into a comfort zone, because all of a sudden you have less responsibility, because this couple doesn't have to do things for each other anymore. So that can continue for a very long time if you actually find it pleasant. And sometimes that's what happens. So set a deadline. We don't want them to become complacent and so relaxed that they don't want to find time for each other, right? And I feel most important to moving forward when the mediator comes and sits down with the couple is we've got to learn to then forgive. Like we've got to find ways to move forward. And if you say, you know what, I mean, if my husband was he was having an affair, example, and I needed time out for that, then I would probably say, I need 3 months. I mean, I need time to heal. I need a lot of time for me to decide, because it was a major deceit in terms of our marriage. And because of that, the longer time I have, the more I can decide if I want in. And if he wants a reconciliation, he's got to give me the time. He's going to say, no matter how much I hate it, no matter how long I think 3 months is, I deserve it because I brought this upon myself. So he's going to do everything that it takes to make things right, no matter how long and no matter how hard he has to work. So the mediator has to be fair and has to give each spouse responsibility to work on things that they have contributed to why the marriage is in trouble in the first place. And forgiveness is a huge part of it. So for me, if I had after 3 months and I say, okay, I'm healing now, I feel a little better, I have some clarity, I don't understand why he did it, because there's no right reason for it, but I'm willing to give it a chance, because in the 3 months, I understand what he means to me, how much this marriage is important for me. And it's more important to be with him than to be without him, no matter what he did. So that means I've got to learn to forgive. Okay. So these are all factors. So when you have a mediator, they must take all this into account, because this is proactive. This is working towards reconciliation. This is working towards both parties being heard and understood and given time to work on their inadequacies, if we can call it that. And inshallah, that by itself will help towards mending this marriage and working beautifully moving forward, inshallah.
Jazakallah so much, Sister Shahista. Very clearly said out there. This is what we should do when we have misunderstandings in our marriage. A question has come through here, which I am going to attack. We're just going to go for a quick separation from this program, for a quick advert, and then we shall continue. So don't go away.
CII Radio, the pulse of the Ummah.
Welcome back to Colon Sadida, and an honored welcome to the esteemed listeners of Radio Sira 1575 AM medium wave out in Leicester in the UK. And we're discussing this evening a separation. Members making up the panel: Mufti Fayaz Aswad, Sister Shahista Ibrahim, and Sister Bibi Aisha Lahe. Sister Bibi Aisha, a wonderful, very interesting message has come through here which says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My marriage is one which is filled with a lot of abuse. On numerous occasions, I have been threatened to pack my things and leave our home. Words such as get out, pack your things, or just get out, I don't want to see you, has been told to me on numerous occasions. The impact of it is such that I feel that my nikah is terminated. These words, get out, pack your things and leave, makes me feel that I am not in a marriage. Now, Sister Aisha, let's face it, this is common. We know about it. It happens a lot. Let's look at it this way. When there is a separation, Who should leave, husband or wife? And this is something I need our brothers out there to listen carefully. Who should leave? We are ready to say, get out. Who should leave? Sister Bibi Aisha?
Yeah, my heart is so heavy listening to what you just said just now, and yet I hear it almost every day, with the clients that I deal with. And every time I listen to it, it just doesn't get easier. So to answer your question, who should leave? I think before I even start to answer your question, this is what I want to say to the sister. Do not leave. Do not leave. My beloved sister, wherever you are, make your wudu and read Salatul Hajat and speak to your Allah. Go into sujood and cry and speak to your Rabb. Read your Tahajjud Salah and cry to your Rabb. Every opportunity that you have to make dua, sit and ask your Creator to soften the heart of your husband. Because any Muslim man who utters such words is somebody that really needs psychological help. We are Muslim. And I think that's something that is very, very, very important, something that is a plague amongst our Muslim communities around South Africa. There's a huge difference between culture and religion based on numerous interaction with women across the globe. And I'm not just going to say South Africa, across the globe. 9 out of 10 marriages end up in divorce, not because the couples had issue, but it's because of the cultural lifestyle, because of the interference of family members, whether it could be from the woman's side, from the man's side. If there's a blended marriage, it could be the interference of other family members, mother-in-law issues, father-in-law issues. That is all culture. There's no place for that in Islam. We say that we are Muslim. We read our namaz. We believe in the 5 pillars of Islam. Why don't we love as Muslims? We say we want to love a life that will please Allah. But here's something very, it's quite interesting that I needed to hear this on a recent travel abroad from somebody who was very curious about Deen, very, very, intrigued by Deen. And he very innocently asked that, are you Muslim? Or are you Indian? Because we are confused. When you get married, many of the brides wear this white dress. But that is not Islamic. That is like a Christian way of getting married. Then the festivities that happen in the few days prior to the marriage, that is very much like a cultural Indian festivity. Then the lifestyle is confusing. But when you get divorced, you want to go to your Muslim priest. When you get married, you want to go to your Muslim priest. And when I thought to myself, what this man was saying is the thought and belief of many people around the world. So I ask you, my beloved listeners, are you Muslim? Are you Indian? Are you culturally led? Are you worried what will people say? Or do you ask yourself, what will Allah say? Because if a man fears Allah and he lives around Allah, according to Quran, Hadith, Sunnah, we can't follow every Sunnah of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Our beloved Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was perfect, most perfect of Allah's creation, and had the habits that would basically any human being can relate to. But our beloved Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us how to love. So why are we going to psychologists that are not Muslim? Why are we going to counselors that are not Muslim? They don't understand our deen. Why are we doing this whole, that's what I'm trying to understand. That when we understand our religion, our marriages become better. Our responsibilities to each other. A nikah is between a man and a wife.
Sister Bibi Aisha, sorry, Maaf, I'm going to ask the engineer to get hold of you again. We're beginning to lose you. I'm going to ask Brother Modi. Okay, while we're doing that, Mufti Sahib, just based on that question, and it's about time we realize something. Yes, we want a separation. There's no getaway. A separation comes into effect, but unfortunately we leave it when we created separation in the most ugliest format. Who leaves, the husband or the wife?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. With regards to the separation and when it ends up in a divorce, now first of all, let us look at what the words that the man used to his wife. He used the words get out. Now in Islam, there is the ruling with regards to what is a divorce. And there is a certain category that the Hanafi jurists have regarded as divorce. And with regards to the type of wording, they have mentioned two types. One is talaq-e-sarih, and the other is talaq-e-kinaya. Right now, talaq-e-sarih is unambiguous words used for talaq. And that is, if a person uses the words talaq, he uses the word divorce, he uses these type of words in any other language, then automatically, because these words were used, and it is understood from the words that the husband used, then automatically it ends up in a divorce. And the second category, as defined by the Hanafi jurists with regards to talaq-e-kinaya, which is ambiguous words used, but the intention behind this is talaq. Then even though the words talaq or divorced was not used, but the intention behind the words were a divorce, then automatically a divorce falls. So if a husband says, get out, and his intention is that he does not want to see his wife again, he wants to end the marriage off, then that results in a divorce. So using the words get out, using some swear words, using the word scram, using the word even go to your mother's house with the intention that he wants to end this marriage could end up in a talaq. So it's very important that a husband realizes that what he tells his wife, and he should make sure that he uses such words which would not create a divorce within the marriage. In fact, it is mentioned that on one occasion, a Sahabi came to Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Sahabi complained to the difficulty to Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or complained about the difficulty to Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam with regards to his marriage, meaning the difficulty he experienced. And at that time, as he approached Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam told him few words. And it is mentioned that Zayd bin Haritha, the freed slave of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, approached Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he mentioned something about his wife. Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam then encouraged him and said that keep your wife to yourself and fear Allah. So in other words, when it comes to treating your wife and using some type of words, that individual, that husband, that man should realize that Allah can hear what he is saying. If he mistreats his wife, Allah is seeing what he is doing. If he is overly harsh towards her, and he usurps her rights, and he does not fulfill his duties towards her, Allah knows about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything. And we should fear Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we do not put the slave of Allah or place the slave of Allah in unnecessarily a type of difficulty, or we should try and protect them whereby they themselves would not find themselves in a situation of difficulty. So remember, as far as the words is concerned, do not say the words get out. It could end up ending your marriage. Rather be simple, rather walk away from that and follow the sunnah of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, is that when you are angry, if you stand in, sit down. If you overcome with heat, leave the room, go and make wudu, go and drink a glass of water. Follow the beautiful sunnah of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Don't say anything in anger, because it may end up ending your marriage, or it may result in ending your marriage, and then you'll regret for the rest of your life. And then you may come up with a suggestion that, you know what, I just said it in anger, I did not mean it. Even a divorce said lightheartedly, a divorce said in anger, results in a talaq, results in a divorce. And the jurists so beautifully make mention that when you say in a divorce in anger, it definitely occurs and it is effective, because no one really gives talaq in a state of happiness. So it definitely, a person should make sure that he does not use those words like get out. And if his intention behind it was divorce, then a divorce takes place and the woman will have to immediately absolve her iddah. Now with regards to your question, Brother Yusuf, who should leave the house? The husband said get out, but the two of them are staying there together. It may be the husband's house, but the Sharia dictates that as long as the woman is in iddah, that is iddah of a divorce, technically, even though the marriage may have ended, technically, she's still in the nikah of a husband. And during the iddah period, that woman will still be the responsibility of her ex-husband. This is during the talaq. And during that time, he will still have to take care of her. He will still have to buy for her food. He will still have to pay for the water and electrical bills in the house in which she resides or in which they both resided in. He will have to find new premises because once talaq is issued, they can no longer live as husband and wife. But the responsibility of taking care of her during the iddah still is on the shoulders of the husband. So he tells her get out, but her iddah will be within the home which she resided in prior to the talaq taking place. So first of all, I reiterate on the point, do not use the words get out. Do not say go to your mother's house. Do not say never want to see you again. If the intention was talaq, a talaq becomes effective. And if a person did say these words and he realized it is talaq, then he should leave that wife, his ex-wife of his, to spend the iddah within that home. He should move out so that the laws of Sharia are followed and carried out and they are not broken in any way possible.
Mufti Sahib, Jazakallah for that. But during a separation, who leaves the home now? Let's go back to, I believe Sister Bibi Aisha is with us, and I was with Sister Bibi Aisha with that. And let's go back to the format here of the separation. And I think it's time we realize, yes, we need a separation. There are kids involved. Is it not fair for the men to walk out then, Sister Bibi Aisha?
Yes, I do agree that it should be fair for the men to walk out if there's a separation. Think to yourself that you are still married to this woman. You are still her protector. You are still her mola. There's going to be changes when it comes to routine for the children. She may, probably when there's a separation, maybe it will be required for her to go back to her mother, to her mahrams, to her brother. What if they do not have place to accommodate for her? What if they do not have place to accommodate for the children? Then what happens? How many lives are going to get disrupted? During this period. And like we say, a separation is a cool-off period. So like we mentioned with the message that the sister sent earlier, when you asked who should go away, she shouldn't leave her home. That's exactly what I said, do not leave the home. And even in that time, when you are separated, the dua must be made that how do we get back together? I think this is also a time where I'm going to make this comment because this is something that comes up all the time when in consultation with women. Where are the mahrams? We are the mahrams. When it was spoken earlier about the mediator and who do we go to assist, yes, 100%. The witnesses should be there. Like you say, the witness is not someone who's just putting an autograph. You are chosen as the wakil, as the witness for a reason, because you are the mahram. Where are you in all of this? Where is the role? It's very sad that when there's a problem, people often say, we don't want to get involved. When it's couple issues, we don't want to get involved. Because tomorrow they get together, we're very bad. You have to answer to Allah because you have a responsibility as family. You have a responsibility as mahrams. You have a responsibility to the man and the woman that are in this marriage. What are you doing to bring them together? What are you doing to help find a win-win situation? And if there comes to a point, with a solution, that there is no way that this marriage can be fixed, then there's provision for that also in the Quran. But that is the last resort. When family want to get together to assist, Are you coming to assist so there can be stories later? Are you coming to assist so we can blame this one, that one? Or are you coming to assist with saying, listen, we heard your issue, but now let us get a solution. We must be solution-based. What would Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam advise in a situation like this? What does Quran tell us in a situation like this? You shouldn't be telling someone, in our family, we don't do this. Or in my family, someone went to this and this is what we did. Ask yourself, you want the book of life? There is Quran. You have difficulty understanding how to interpret it? There is Sunnah. Here's the solution. Again, like I mentioned earlier, get in touch with a reputable, mature, responsible, accredited alim. Somebody who knows the laws of Quran, Hadith and Sunnah. Somebody who can guide you. Because at the end of the day, everyone that is involved in this mediation process must have one goal. And that goal is to reunite this couple. Yes, there's going to be differences. You come from different homes. There's going to be differences. You have different opinions. You are two different people. But Allah wrote your names together before you were even born. Allah brought you together. And that's what you need to look at the bigger picture. Getting out of the house, telling someone to get out of the house. Later, when that sister needs to come back into the house, when that lady needs to come back into the house, unfortunately, we live in a society, you see, she needed me, she had to come back. That is not how you speak. That is not how you think. That is not how anyone should be thinking. When the separation period is over and you reach some point of agreement to say, moving forward, this is what we're going to do for the sake of our marriage. Not a marriage to make your father happy and your grandfather happy and your in-laws happy. A marriage to make the two of you happy for the pleasure of Allah. When you come back home, you should be welcomed like a new bride. That's what should happen. She had to come back with her legs heavy. She had to, eat humble pie. She had to bite her lip. That's not how people should be going on. We live in a society today, like we said, do we live in a society for what will people say, or do we live in the dunya for what will Allah say? And when there are children involved, children are watching. They are listening. They look at everything that you do. When you want to teach a child about how to treat a man, how to treat a woman, who do they learn from? Yes, they go to the maktab. Yes, they go to schools. They have people who teach them in the maktab. They have people who teach them in the schools. But who are their greatest teachers? Their parents. They learn from a father how to treat a woman. They learn from a mother how to treat a man. They learn from their parents how to treat each other. And if they don't see that mutual respect between their parents, when they don't see that love between their parents, then who is going to teach them how to become a man one day, how to become a woman one day, how to interact with the world one day, how to become a spouse one day? Who are they going to learn that from? Who are their role models? So yes, we are human beings, we get angry. Yes, there are maybe faults in your wife that you find very irritating. But we have faults. Women have faults, men have faults also. I know as women, we do tend to talk a lot. We do nag. After all, we were created from the crooked rib. We're not perfect. And men and women in Islam are not equal. That's another message to our sisters, that I demand my rights, I demand this. Your husband is your protector. He is your mahram. He has greater rights than you. And that rights were given to him by Allah. So yes, our women also, not saying that men have a right to abuse women, but women also do not have a right to abuse men. And whatever the problem is, we have to ask each other first. Why did we get together in the first place? Why did we make nikah? We made nikah. It's not a joke. It's not a dating game. It's not get into one marriage, get out of it, get into another marriage, get out of it. It's not a game. You're playing with people's lives. You're playing with families' lives. And most importantly, you are going to meet your Rabb one day, and what are you going to say to him?
True.
So as much as we can, we need to try and unite. As much as we can, when you hear somebody in your family is going through some difficulty, don't say, what if I phone and they're going to think I'm phoning to gossip? Put up on this thing that if you are sincere. Phone the person and don't ask, I heard this. It's like, how can I help? Actually phone him and say, Sister Shaista, how can I help? Sister Bibi Aisha, how can I help? Be solution-based and be sincere. At the end of the day, we are all going to answer to Allah that how did we handle this marriage situation.
Very strong, but so true. A nail on the head. So true, Sister Bibi Aisha. The message continues, Sister Bibi Aisha, which says, I am still in my home but live in separate rooms, for I feel I am not in a nikah anymore. That is another discussion some other time, but just for clarity and for clearance and peace of mind, she says, I am still in my home but live in separate rooms, for I feel I am not in a nikah. So Shaista,
Please tell her to stay in that home. Do not walk out.
So Shaista, we see this quite often, where fathers pick up their daughters because that marriage is in such a state. Now let us be open about it. The father normally gets that message from his wife, which is the mother, or from the daughter, or from somebody out there. I firmly believe, number one, that sister in that marriage who has got a problem is talking to somebody. Is that person that she's talking to strong enough that can guide her, but instead of messing up that marriage and say, yes, I feel you must get away. Yes, you are on the right track. Leave him. Let's get away. Oh, is that a true friend of yours? Father will go and collect his daughter, because his wife has told him, or his daughter has told him, another daughter within the home has told him that, yes, please, she's in a problem, go and pick her up. But that is not the way of doing a separation, because it becomes a difficult task to reconcile thereafter.
Absolutely, Uncle Yusuf. So, women and men go through difficulties in the marriage. And as human beings, we are social creatures. We need to talk, women especially. They say women are from Mars, men are from Venus. Sorry, women are from Venus, men are from Mars, right? So we're different, and we made different. Our composition is different. The way we think is different. The way we react. And emotionally, women need more support than men. Women share a lot more than men. Women want more validation and support from other females more than men. Men deal with things themselves. Men will only ask for help if they ever need it. Men will try and figure things out, and until then, you don't even tell him how to take the right, left turn to go to a certain area. You don't even give directions, because men want to figure things out for themselves. And women do things differently. So yes, it is part of a woman's nature to share. It is part of a woman's nature. When something happens, she feels that she needs to pick up the phone. And because a lot of women will feel, if I tell somebody, okay, let me hear what, and a lot of women want to know, what must I do, right? And that's the one thing we learn in counseling right from the start. You don't dispense this advice. We're not here to give advice, because if we give wrong advice, or we give the right advice but it doesn't turn out right for that person, we can cause a whole lot more damage. So we try not to do that. But women want that. What do I do? Now what must I do? Now he said this, okay? Now if you're going to want to do that, so women listening today, if you feel that you need somebody to turn to, you have to choose one person that is going to be a good friend, that's going to be a confidant, that's going to actually tell you where you're going wrong. You've got to find somebody that's smart and wise and mature and not scared to tell you the truth. Because there are times when people will say what, just what you think or you want them to say, and other times they will say the absolute truth. And there's a very big difference between the two. So you need to have the right person in your circle. And your parents are not that circle. That we have to explain from the start. Really, your parents are not. If every time something happens and you phone your mom and you complain about your spouse, that mother's going to have a lot of disregard for your spouse. She's not going to respect your husband. She's not going to like the son-in-law, because all she remembers is this hard time that he's giving her daughter. Okay, and then what happens is you and husband, you make up and everything's all hunky-dory, everything's wonderful, everybody's in love again, and the mother's still sitting there feeling bad because this hasn't happened once. So I honestly believe that the parents are the last people that you should be telling about the problems, okay? Because they will give you advice like, why are you taking that nonsense? I didn't bring you up that way. And a lot of mothers say that, I've heard this. And a lot of women talk about that, but my mother says, I don't need to put up with this nonsense, or why am I still there, and they don't just understand me. They don't get me. So if we think we're going to make it easy for our daughters to just leave at any time because our houses are open, I can tell you that that's also a reason, and that's a factor of why people people separate and divorce so easily because the woman thinks, I got somewhere else to go. So it shouldn't, marriage is not easy. And if you're going to, half of your iman is about half of your iman, that's a huge responsibility. So that also means that marriage is a huge responsibility. And when the going gets tough, the tough don't just run away, they try and make it work first. That's your first responsibility. And if after everything you can't, then you have to look for other options. But we can't make it easy for our girls, especially, to think, no, my mother's there for me, my father's there for me, they support me, they give me an allowance every month. As long as I have that, I don't need this man, I don't have to work on this marriage. What do I need this for? So we've got to first make that very clear. Please make it, back in the day, people, when you ask them, why did it work? Well, they'll tell you, my parents, when we got married, our grannies will say, they told us your janaza must come out of that home. So we had no choice. We had to make it work. And then it did, right? Sometimes not easily, but it did. And that's the first thing. Don't tell parents especially. And so choose your friends well as well. And if you find that people are just going to tell you what you want to hear, and deep down that it's not the right advice, then you've got to be honest enough to have the right people in your circle. Or you've got to know that I have to go either to a counselor, I've got to go to a professional who can see things very impartially, somebody who can advise me on the right way of doing things, somebody who is not going to take my part because she knows me, or somebody is not going to just tell me what I want to hear because they're my friend and they're scared of hurting my feelings. So know that speaking to people is not the solution, because everybody's perspective of life is different. Some people believe if your friend comes from a home where her mother was a strong personality, her mother worked, and her mother took no nonsense from the husband, and eventually, that's the way their marriage ran. That's what your friend knows. That's what she saw her entire life, and that's how she thinks it should be, because children learn what they love. And so the advice that she's going to give you is coming from that angle. It's strong advice. And why are you putting up with this? Who does he think? Doesn't he know how much you do? Why do you have to do this? You make your own money. Why do you even need him? And so when you have those words put in your head, automatically women find that they don't have to put up with that. If you're hearing that often from somebody that you really consider close and a confidant and wise enough to have your back, you're going to take those words very seriously. And if you do, then what's being filled in your mind is, I don't have to take this. I don't have to deal with this. So the minute there's an argument, it's like, why do I have to put up with this? Right? Because that's what your mind has heard. And that automatically is not a solution to finding a problem. The solution is to work towards something, find a reason of what's not working, and then work forward. But when you have the attitude of, I don't deserve this, I don't need this, I can do without this, then no one's going to want to work in that marriage. So we have to understand that some people are there for a reason, and maybe just not advice. So you can have a friend that you can talk to and have fun with. You can have people around in your circle that you can have lunches with and talk about different things. But have that one person who's smart enough and that needs to actually shout you and say, why did you behave this way? And remember, you said that. Like, you need those people, because they are the ones that are saving you. They are the ones that actually have your back. So when that parent gets the phone call, I think it's very easy for parents to get fed up and get irritated and frustrated and just say, I can't deal with this. This happens so often. I'm just picking my daughter up. And it doesn't make it easier. I really do believe that it makes it so easy for the girl to just phone and say, I'm coming, and not work on the marriage. So even for the parents that are listening, if your daughter phones, say, I'll come, but I'll come tomorrow. Give my son-in-law the phone. Please go to another room. Leave my daughter alone for tonight. And sometimes all we need is time out. The next day sometimes brings hope, and things look different again, and everything gets a bit more clearer, and everything gets a bit calmer, and things, start falling sort of into place. Not that you leave a daughter, especially if she's being physically abused, she's being, there's a lot of domestic violence. If the husband was, he was messing around, running around, and he comes back late all the time, he's making excuses, he's really violent, he screams a lot. Of course, you have to actually go there as a parent, sit him down, and you've got to say the right things. Getting your daughter out doesn't mean that changes him. It just makes it easy for him to behave any way he wants to, because he knows he can send her going packing to her mother's house, gives him space, gives him time out. He can behave how he wants when she's not around, and when he's ready for her back into his life, then he goes back, crying and apologizing and really, and feeling bad. With a lot of promises and hope, and then it becomes so easy for him. So I believe, that makes it way too easy for a man to just get away with everything they're doing because you're just removing the girl from the situation. So you've got to go as a parent. If I'm bringing my daughter up for 20 odd years or so, and I give her to you, that you came to my door, I gave her hand in to marry to you in a very nice, decent way, alhamdulillah, I have a right to speak to you because you're a child still in front of me. You're the son-in-law, but you have a right to listen to me because you married to my daughter. And together we can find solutions. And I can tell you that this is not working for me, right? Just picking up your daughter, taking away, and then the thing is, when I say that, I talk from experience. My parents didn't have a good marriage. It was difficult. And a lot of times we left home and we went to go and live with my grandparents. And when we did, they had open arms. Like, they would just welcome us, which was great as children because at least we had somewhere to go while these two were sorting their problems out. But it made it so easy to leave home and go because somebody was very accommodating. And nobody thinks about now the children, and we haven't even brought them up in the conversation yet. But what happens to that child when they leave everything they know, everything that is dear to them, from their father to their house to their own rooms, and have to go and live with grandparents who may not be doing so well in life? And you've got to live in a very small area. You've got to be mattresses on the carpet because now the house is overcrowded. Your mom's got to look at you if you want to take a second helping because your nana is not doing so well in life and business is not so great, and she gives you this look and you're thinking, in my own house I never had these issues, but now I've got to do that. We don't think about the repercussions when it comes to that, what we're putting our children through and what we're putting the grandchildren through. So honestly, we need to find solutions, not make it easy for anybody to leave home and say, that's fine, call me whenever things go wrong, I'll pick you up, you don't need this either. That, I feel, that attitude doesn't actually help a marriage. It makes it way too easy to just work towards divorce rather than reconciliation. And please, let us think about the kids. Let us find solutions. And if as a parent you want to help the child, send your son-in-law for counseling. Send him to a professional. Let him get help. Maybe he came from a background that's his father did. He knows no better. We're not saying it's right, but if we're really looking at the truth of the matter, we have to also take that into account. If he doesn't know any better, this is all he's known his entire life. He was screamed at. He was shouted at. He was hit. He was sent to the corner. And this is what he knows. He's going to behave this way. That doesn't mean we must write him off. That doesn't mean that he's a bad person. So as a parent, say, listen, I'm tired of this, but I see love between the two of you. I know there's hope for you. I'm giving this a shot, not by taking my daughter away, but by paying for you to go and get help. She's also going to get help because I don't think she's perfect either. And when you people do, now if you come together, and now if it doesn't work, yes, then I know I've tried. Then I know we've done what we needed to move forward. And inshallah, I think, Uncle Yusuf, that is one of the best ways that we should be reconciling. But I really want to say, just don't open your door and think it's okay for your daughter to come and go, come and go, come and go. It makes a mockery of marriage. It puts the children through a lot of trauma. And it's just not easy. That is not. And then what the kids learn? I mean, if I came from their background, for me, the easiest thing to ever say to myself is, I don't need this, because it was so easy for me to just leave home. And that's not what we want to teach people. We want to say, give it your best shot.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. A lot of points in there that we should try to put into place. Mufti Sahab, when you look at the word separation, and the reason why I took on this program today is because the rate that our marriages are being dissolved with such minute excuses. There's a loophole that we have what is called a separation, but separation for reconciliation. And we've taken, and I think Sister Shahista has put it across the air beautifully, that we're taking separation as a road to a divorce. We've misunderstood what is separation. And I say this again, Mufti Sahab, the reason being is because there is no strong communication between the parents-in-laws. Forget the couple. The parents-in-laws are not strong enough, or they don't even have communication. They greet each other on the day when the children are getting married, and thereafter don't even know each other. And this has become a major flaw in the advancement of our children's marriages. That's why they are dissolving at such a fast rate. Mufti Sahib, importance, we always believed that a marriage strengthens family. There are more families coming together. But this is not happening in our marriages. So what are we doing? Are we doing a marriage to get it dissolved, or are we having a marriage to increase the family structure? We need to get our points right here, Mufti Sahib.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. With regards to the separation, as you mentioned so beautifully, it should be a means of reconciliation, not a means to end off things. Many a times, when we see our children going through difficulty, we do not become parents, or rather we do not play our role as parents, but then we rather try to play a role of a friend. And that is, we try and support them and help them so that they can remove this difficulty from their life. But the role of a parent, or as you said, in-laws as well, is slightly different from that of a friend.
Correct.
Their role is the role of a guide, someone who can help them, someone who can nurture them, someone who can make them realize that this temporary difficulty they are going through will soon pass. This is what they need at that time. When a child begins to walk, they'll fall down a couple of times. But imagine when the parents see them fall down on the first attempt, says, okay, now you shouldn't walk, it's going to be too difficult for you. What will happen to that child? So in the same way with marriage, when they're going through some type of difficulty, and we all know every single married couple goes through some type of difficulty. There's always some type of dispute. There's also always some type of argument. There'll be unhappiness. But during that time, they need someone who'll tell them that, what? The sun has set, but it will rise very soon. Darkness has set in, but soon it will be bright. That's who they need in their life. And that is the role the parent has to take. And the in-laws also have to take this role. Is that they not start finding faults in their daughter-in-law or son-in-law, but rather remember that they have become your son, they have become your daughter. So help them as well through this difficult period so that light and brightness can once again enter their life. There's a very beautiful incident. It is mentioned about Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and I think this is a famous incident when Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam separated from his wife for 29 days. The reason being is that we know Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam was a simple individual, and he did not, he was not accustomed to luxurious things. And whenever luxury would come into his life, he would feel uncomfortable. So it is after a battle, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Battle of Hunayn, when a lot of wealth came to the Muslims. But Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam grew up in that lifestyle where he was a simple individual. He was not accustomed to all luxuries, all of those things. So immediately he gave out whatever he could to the Muslim Ummah, to his Sahaba, and he did not keep anything from himself. So the wives of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam approached Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and they asked Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam that if he could provide for them a better lifestyle. He could provide for them and give them a better lifestyle and change their conditions from being a simple one to a more luxurious lifestyle. And Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam was such that he was a servant of Allah in the true sense. He did not want to live a luxurious life. He wanted to live as a prophet and a slave rather than a prophet as a king. So Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam then decided that he will separate himself from his wives. And the intention here, as the muhaddithin explain, was not to divorce them, but rather was to make them realize the goodness that they had in their life with Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the honor they had of being the wives of Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the status that was given to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And any luxuries they ask for in this world will soon pass and will perish. but Allah will definitely prepare for them luxuries in the year after, which will last forever and ever. Now your question was, how do the in-laws help? What is their role that they have to play? Now, a beautiful example when Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam separated for them for 29 days. Here again, we come to that point. He left their houses. They remain in their houses. But he went up into Masjid al-Nabawi, a small attic, and that's where he stayed in. So here again, lessons from the hadith as to who should leave the home. Then Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an got to know about this. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala got to know about this. And his daughter, Sayyidatina Hafsa, was married to Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now automatically he was worried now. Was his daughter divorced by Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or they were just separated? And as a father-in-law, what role did he play? So it is mentioned in the hadith narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala an, that when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an got to know about it, he became shocked. He was unaware. He was surprised at what had happened. And he did not know whether Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam divorced his wives or he just separated. So now he was worried. So he went to Hafsa radiallahu ta'ala anha immediately and asked her that, do you ever reply back in an argument to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Look at this. Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an went to Sayyidina Hafsa, his own daughter, and he asked her, do you ever reply back in an argument to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam? She said, yes, I do. Then he asked, do you ever leave him for a day? She said, yes. Then, as we can see from the beautiful things of the story, it shows the humanity of everyone involved. That the wives of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were also human beings. They also made mistakes. They also would react sometimes in a manner which is obviously human, in a humanly manner. So anyway, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, then he went to Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he said that you should never ever, or rather to his daughter, he said that, you know what, do not irritate Nabi Karim sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Do not speak back to him. Do not respond back to him. For speaking back to him or even staying away from him for half a day or so, that is like a type of, it is a wrong deed. It is a wrong deed. It is such an action that could lead to you losing everything. Now look at the role of the father. He actually told his daughter that, you know what, if you ignore Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this way, if you get angry at him, if you speak back to him, it could result in such a way, the words in Arabic, khab wa khasir, that you would lose everything. And in addition, he advised her, are you not scared of the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you if the messenger of Allah is angry with you? Look at that. What beautiful example from the hadith of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the life of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an went and he asked Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam if he had divorced his wives. And Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, no, he just merely separated. And after 29 days, Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam returned to his families, and they realized that being a wife of a prophet comes with some type of responsibility, and that is to abstain from luxurious things. But look at the role of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala an, the manner in which he displayed, how he helped his daughter, how he guided his daughter, how he nurtured his daughter, and he told her of her responsibilities, that if by fulfilling her responsibilities, or another father, if he tells his son about his responsibilities towards his wife, by fulfilling that of their responsibilities, it may save them from a outcome which they will feel like they lost everything. And I'm sure, Brother Yusuf, you know, those people who went through a divorce, they felt like they lost everything. They invested so much. But when they go through that divorce, it feels like they lost everything. So Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala's word was actually perfect. That separation period, realize, see where you go wrong, see what you have done wrong, and look at yourself and then afterwards reconcile and try and be a better person for your spouse, and Allah will be pleased with you and He'll create muhabba. The parents' responsibility is to nurture and guide and help their children during this period, not to take their part, befriend them, and just cast aside their son-in-law or their daughter-in-law.
Very, very important points that came out from Mufti Fayyaz Aswad Sahib. A lesson that we all need to learn from. We have 5 minutes left on this program. A promise from myself solely through the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to our listeners on Channel Islam International and to our esteemed listeners on Radio Sira 1575 AM MW out in Leicester, UK. This discussion needs to continue. There are so many points that we need to go through, and inshallah that we can better our lives and bring the beauty of marriage into our lives solely for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this discussion will be continuing next week solely with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let us go across to Sister Bibi Aisha Lahe. Your parting comments for tonight, Sister Bibi Aisha?
Jazakallahu khairan. I think to all the sisters that are in this situation right now, whether you are separated, whether you're considering separation, whether you want a divorce, I want you to do a little bit of homework for me. I want you to do this. That when you are separated from your husband right now, maybe you're staying by your mom or wherever you are, how many times have you spoken about the good that your husband did? Let's be honest. When you are making a particular dish, didn't you say to yourself, I'm just going to say, for example, oh, Muhammad likes eating this, or Yusuf likes eating this, or Musa likes when I do this. Let's be very honest. How many times have you thought about the beautiful times that you spent together? And you smile to yourself. So yes, we're going to have times when there's conflict, and there's going to be times when it's difficult, but think about the good times. And if you think about the good times, they're going to multiply, and they're going to remind you why you started off this journey as the wife of so-and-so. And to the men out there, I want you to think the same, that she may not be by you right now because you are separated, but how many times did you wonder when you were probably by your mom or by your daughter that Shaista doesn't cook this like that, she makes it like this, or I like the way Khadija makes this. Let's be very, very honest. You must her nagging, you must that smile in the morning, you must even the arguments, but you also must have the positive light that she brings into your life. So this is the homework. Let's write down 5 things that makes you think about the good about that person. And every day, if you can, I'm so confident that you can, you will find one good quality every day. At the end of the week, remind yourself, why were you in this marriage for the first place? And then remember asking your du'as, inshallah.
Beautiful words, truly motivational speaker, and it's just shown right now by Sister Bibi Aisha Lahe. Inshallah, with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Sister Bibi Aisha, I'm sure you can join us next week as well, inshallah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I say marriages are made in heaven, no? So we must do what it takes to make sure it stays that way.
Yes, we need joy in every home of our brothers and sisters out there. Why not?
Uncle Yusuf, she's also still on honeymoon, so she's the right person to actually get for this show.
Sister Bibi Aisha, any comment on that one?
Mom, I didn't hear that, sorry.
Sister
I said, Bibi Aisha, you're still on honeymoon, so you're the right person to get on the show, like, you know?
You know, I must tell you something, that every couple should be on honeymoon every day. Every day that you're alive is an opportunity to make a difference. So it's the little things that matter. I mean, you know, really, I look at couples sometimes. I mean, I'm fortunate, subhanAllah, I live near the ocean. And, you know, you look at these couples, hand in hand, you'll see this uncle with his kurta and his topi and his beard, and you'll see this beautiful, maybe she's in Parda, but they're holding hands, and they're buying an ice cream for each other, and they're sitting on the beach. And, you know, I would say to my husband, inshallah, I mean, I wish that is me and you in another 20 years' time. And I see it so often. Simple pleasures. Simple pleasure. I mean, even if you're arguing with your husband and he walks on your nerves and you want to take that pot and throttle it at him, just calm down, take a deep breath, go phone a friend, go make 2 rakats salat shukr, go make sijda shukr, and remind yourself why you were there. And then just go and take an ice cream for him. I promise you, he'll forget everything that he said. Men just make noise, and women also just make noise.
Mufti Saab, no comment there, Mufti Saab.
Ice cream, yeah, definitely. I think it brings a smile to everyone's face.
Sister Bibi Aisha, I want to say, I've been honored. We've been honored to have you on this program. It's lovely to be again with you on one program. We've shared a few occasions before. I feel so honored to have you on Kolan Sadida. Jazakallah so much for your input, motivational words, very inspirational. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow you to continue further in your endeavors to bring joy to many, many homes, inshallah.
Ameen. Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. It's an honor to be here. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the efforts of all the panelists, Mufti Saab, Sister Shaista, yourself, our sound engineer, and everybody that made this program possible. Like I said, if we could inspire one couple today to sit and rethink what they're doing, to come together, then alhamdulillah, may Allah accept our efforts.
Jazakallah so much. And from my side, a request for du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you. I think we've just lost Sister Bibi Aisha. So Shaista, yes, I think this program needs to continue next week, inshallah. There's a lot of points we need to look at to ensure that the separation does not turn into divorces, but rather reconcile and bring brightness back into those marriages. There's a lot of points we need to discuss, inshallah, and that it can be effective to all our listeners here on Channel Islam International, and also to our esteemed listeners on Radio Sira out in Leicester in the UK. Sister Shaista?
Absolutely, Uncle Yusuf. We haven't touched on the kids, we haven't touched on the emotional part of it, the aspect. There's a lot, and separation is a big thing by itself. It's a long word, it's a big thing, and within a marriage especially. So we want to give our listeners everything from every aspect so they go into a separation fully knowledgeable of what happens, what it entails, even legally. We need to, put that as well. We'll discuss next week. So every aspect of it we need to tackle, inshallah, so they make proper informed decisions, because that's what we're about. And empowering, motivating, inspiring, and educating each other.
Jazakallah so much. Request for du'as from my side, Sister Shaista. All the best to you. Till next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.